Houston. Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed at Hitmix 88.9 WEIU.
Welcome to the Tales of Music and Film podcast. I am DJ Apollo. I just want to say I hope you're having a very excellent day. Things are going pretty well. The semester is going well for me here at Eastern. I'm having loads of fun, and I just couldn't be more happy right now. Everything in my life's going extremely well, and I hope everything's going well in your life as well. Things have been getting pretty crazy around here, but I'm happy that I get about a good 40 minutes to just relax and do another amazing episode on the Tales of Music and Film podcast. And I'm very excited for this episode because we are covering another artist that I'm a huge fan of. We're covering one of his biggest records of all time. I am, of course, talking about the amazing artist Bon Jovi. And we will be covering his famous third record labeled Slippery When Wet. Now, this album, it needs no introduction. Most rock and roll fans, they know this record. And it's one of the highlights of the 80s hair metal band era. This album is incredible. It's full of just amazing gems, and it's just a phenomenon to discuss. So that's going to be the topic for today's recording. I'm so excited. So let's get into this record. So, Slippery When Wet is the third studio album by American rock band Bon Jovi. It was released on August 18th, 1986 by Mercury Records in North America and Vertigo Records internationally. It was produced by Bruce Fairbairn with recording sessions between January and July of 1986 at Little Mountain Sound Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, and Canada. The album features many of Bon Jovi's best-known songs, including You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, and Wanted Dead or Alive. The album has been called the album that turned heavy metal into a radio-friendly pop format and is also commonly seen as a breakthrough for hair metal. And I'm saying right now, that little comment there could not be more right. This album was a huge phenomenon. And before we get into any more of the history for you, I thought I'd talk about for just a little bit about how I was introduced to this record. So I've been listening to Bon Jovi a lot throughout my childhood, and I didn't realize this. So the very first time I heard Bon Jovi, the song Wanted Dead or Alive, because on Discovery Channel, there was a show called Deadliest Catch, and the song Wanted Dead or Alive was used for the intro for every episode. And I watched that show for years on Discovery Channel, and that's how I was introduced to Bon Jovi. And growing up in my early teens, one of my favorite comedies of all time was a movie called Spaceballs, which is a parody of Star Trek and Star Wars. And in that movie, the song Raise Your Hands was in it. I thought that song was incredible, so I did some digging, and I found out that song was off of this record. So it was through pop culture that it introduced me to this album, and I literally have this album on CD and on vinyl in my music collection. It's such a beautiful record. And before we get into the actual record, I want to take a moment and name off the members of the band. So, of course, you have the legendary vocalist, John Bon Jovi. You have keyboardist, Dave Byron. You have drummer, Tico Torres. You have guitarist, Phil X. And bassist, Hugh McDonald. And that is the Bon Jovi band lineup. And this record, like I was stating earlier, it has so many amazing tracks on here. Like You Give Love a Bad Name. I love that song. And funny story, this song was brilliantly used in a parody anime. So I'll do a little backstory for you. There is an anime that I'm a huge fan of that my best friend Jonathan introduced me to. It's called Hellsing Ultimate. Very amazing. Highly recommend you check it out. And this YouTube channel made a parody of of the anime, redubbing it and adding in all these funny music edits and everything. And in one of the episodes, the lead character has a vampire at gunpoint, and he has a girl in front of him as a hostage. So our main character shoots through the girl and kills the vampire, but it shoots her in the heart. So she's laying there dying, and our main character, who is a vampire, has to turn her into a vampire. And in the parody of that scene, when he shoots her, you hear a quick little snippet of "shot through the heart," because she was literally shot through the heart. I thought that was an extremely funny little edit that the creators did there. And of course, "Living on a Prayer," like, come on. That song is so iconic, and I just love the 80s sound in that song. And of course, "Wanted Dead or Alive," that song is just so good, and it really gives me vibes of like, that song could really be used in a cowboy movie. I could so see that being like that would be the perfect background music for like a draw in the middle of the street at high noon. That's what that song makes me think about. You got "Social Disease," another amazing track, and "Never Say Goodbye." The whole thing is just like, from beginning to, you can literally listen to this record from beginning to end, and it's just crammed full with so many amazing tracks that really defined like the mid-late 80s. And the album, it was the best-selling album of 1987 in the United States, and eventually reached diamond certification by the IRAA, and current sales stand at 12 million copies, making it the 48th best-selling album in the United States. And other albums that the band has done, so like Bon Jovi, New Jersey, Bon Jovi, and Bon Jovi, Have a Nice Day, just to name a few other records that they've done. They've done quite a bit. One of my favorite songs, but it's not off this record, is called "Bad Medicine." That's a very, very good song. I unfortunately have never gotten a chance to see Bon Jovi live. He was in St. Louis earlier this year, but me and my parents decided not to go because, unfortunately, Bon Jovi is one of those artists where time hasn't been too kind to him, especially with his voice. Like, his singing voice is gone at this point. If you look at the last couple of years of him singing, like, his singing voice is gone. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he like drank too much or something, but his voice is nowhere near what it used to be. And it's really kind of sad to watch because, you know, he loves to perform live, but his voice is gone. So "Slippery When Wet" was an instant commercial success, spending 8 weeks at #1 on the US Billboard 200 chart, and was named by Billboard as the top-selling album of '87. "Slippery When Wet" is Bon Jovi's best-selling album to date, with an RIA certification of 12x platinum, making it one of the top 100 best-selling albums in the United States. That's just to give you an idea of just like, to sell that many copies, just like what a milestone to reach. This is like when AC/DC released the Back in Black album. Just my whole thing is like, imagine the record they had to release after this. You see, that's something that a lot of like bands and musicians have to deal with. They make an album that's so amazing, makes them extremely well known, but after the success and fame blows over, you have to come to the realization you have to follow up that record. How do you do that? You know what I mean? It's just like, sometimes that's an impossible task, right? Because with certain projects, what you're able to capture, you physically cannot recapture that again. It's an extremely difficult thing to do. I don't know how certain musicians do it, but "Slippery When Wet" was a huge success, and it brought Bon Jovi to mainstream like music audience for the rest of him and his bandmates' careers. And I'm pretty sure when they do live shows, I'm sure a good majority of the songs they played on the set list were off of this record, guaranteed. You'll notice that with a lot of bands when they do concerts, that they end up playing a lot of songs off their most sold record. Like AC/DC, when I saw them in St. Louis, they did like 5 or 6 songs off the Back in Black album. Like GNR, when I saw them, they did most of their songs off of Appetite for Destruction, and so like when you see artists perform, there's a good chance that a lot of songs they do is off their most sold record. Because hey, I mean, when they do live concerts, it promotes it, so it'll up the sales. So that's a good thing to do. So, getting into the actual history of the making of the record. So, much of the album was written by Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora, whereas You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, Without Love, and I Die for You were co-written with Desmond Child, and Wild in the Streets was a Bon Jovi song that he wrote all by himself. This was the first time Child worked with John and Richie. He came to New Jersey where they worked on 4 songs in Sambora's mother's basement. Bon Jovi explained, I liked what Byron Adams had done with Tina Turner, so I suggested we do something similar. I write a song for someone like her, and then we do the song together, but that got changed, and our A&R guy came up with Desmond's name. He hasn't tried to change what we are, but to refine it slightly, to suggest extra ways that we could write a bit more out of what we had. Bon Jovi was initially reluctant to include Living on a Prayer, believing it was not good enough. Sambora convinced him it was a hit in the making, and so the band recorded it, releasing the second version on the album. It is Bon Jovi's signature song. Now, that brings up a very good topic that I'd like to discuss for a minute. So I'm noticing, like, when I'm doing album research, I find myself realizing that so many of the hit songs that we all know and love today, the artists who made them almost didn't want to add them to the record. I notice that all the time where it's like they are their own worst critic. It's like that old saying, like, you are your own worst critic. And that really stands true. And just think, like, so many of the songs that you listen to, there's a good chance, most likely, the artist who made it thought it was going to be hot garbage. But somebody convinced them to put the song on and made history. You'll notice that a lot when looking through history. And it's so crazy how, friends are like, no, that's a good song. Let's leave it on there. You never know. So I'm really happy, that his friend convinced him to keep that song on there, because like that is one of their most famous songs. Now imagine if that song had been left out and it was just never added to anything. History would have turned out extremely different. So it's just so crazy to learn about, those little things and how a song like almost didn't make it on. So the album was a massive commercial success. Between 86 and 87, Slippery When Wet produced a string of hit songs, including 3 top 10 Billboard Hot 100 hits, 2 of which, You Give Love a Bad Name and Living on a Prayer, reached number 1, making Bon Jovi the first glam metal band to have ever had 2 consecutive number 1 Billboard Hot 100 chart hits. The third single, Wanted Dead or Alive, peaked at number 1, making Slippery When Wet the first heavy metal album to have a 3 Billboard Hot 100 top 10 hits. So, like, dude, that's like history making right there. And that speaks for itself on just how amazing and how big this record was with its sales. The album peaked at number 1 on the Billboard 200, making it Bon Jovi's first number 1 album in the United States. The album spent 38 weeks inside the top 5 of Billboard 200, including 8 weeks at number 1. It is the best-selling album, like I said, of 1987 in the US, and to continue that, in the UK, Slippery When Wet received a 3X Platinum certification by the BPI. The album also achieved Diamond status in Canada and 6X Platinum status in Australia. The album is ranked 44th in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's list of the definitive 200 albums of all time. So really, that's just some basic history for you about the history of Bon Jovi's Slippery When Wet. It is now one of the biggest sold records of all time, and it's made amazing history. And I think it's the perfect album to introduce to fans looking for a new artist to get into. Bon Jovi's music is extremely amazing, and I think it's the perfect working out music. Anytime I'm like working out in a gym somewhere and I hear any of Bon Jovi's songs show up on the radio, I find myself pushing myself just a little bit more because his music really got me like juiced up, made me want to push myself even more. I got the adrenaline going. I would highly recommend you check out this record. It's amazing. I love it so much. It really defines the 80s. That was a quick little review of the Slippery When Wet record. I hope you enjoyed this recording, and I will see all you in the next one. Till next time, this is DJ Apollo here on the Tales of Music and Film.